What's a really awkward situation that everyone can relate with? Someone trying to initiate a handshake after you've just washed your hands. It's either a few seconds of quickly drying your hands on your jeans or shaking their hand anyway and seeing the discomfort in their eyes. Having your stomach rumble in the middle of a quiet class/meeting. When I feel anxious, my stomach rumbles uncontrollably several times per minute even. This started to be a problem in school because it would rumble constantly throughout exams and was super embarrassing. But soon enough, anytime I was in a quiet public situation, I'd be dreading my stomach rumbling, and that anxiety would cause it to rumble. This went on for probably around 5 years, and it was hell for me. I used to try so many techniques to suppress the rumbles. Eventually, I figured out it was anxiety related, and that I was unknowingly causing my own stomach to rumble uncontrollably by making myself anxious about it rumbling. Since then, it's been a lot easier to manage. I just focus on my breathing and try to break the cycle by not thinking about it. Picking up on everyone being disinterested in what you're saying, and you're totally bungling the story the longer it goes on. As their disinterest rises and you're desperately trying to keep the narrative ball in the air, and you know it's all falling apart, but your dumb fuck mouth just keeps talking as your dying dignity screams at you to shut the fuck up. I hate being ignored as much as the next guy, but I can't help but burst into laughter whenever someone responds with me. That's crazy, especially if they say it with utter disinterest and boredom in their voice. Ever drag your shoe across a tile floor and have it make a loud, wet fart sound so everyone in the room looks at you? Then you insist it was your shoe and try to make the sound again, but nothing happens? Yeah, that. When you've had multiple interactions with someone, but you can't remember their name, but it's gone too far to admit that you've forgotten it, so you just call them love or mate forever. I met this guy in my math class at the beginning of the semester, and I never caught his name. We became friends, and now it's the end of the semester, and I still don't know his name. Not sure how to ask. Being at a friend's house as a kid, and the friend's mother starts yelling at your friend. Being in your friend's house as a kid, and the friend's father walks in only wearing underwear. Being at a friend's house as a kid for a sleepover, and you wake up the next morning first, so you just lay there awkwardly and bored until your friend wakes up, because you don't know their parents well enough to leave the bedroom. When you're finishing up at checkout, and the cashier puts the notes on top of the receipt, and then coins on top of that. Then the next person steps up, and you're fumbling, trying to disassemble the stack in your hand. Gather your shopping, say thanks, and move away at the same time. In the UK, it's extra sucky because you bag your groceries yourself. If you aren't quick enough, you have to do all of what you mentioned, as well as quickly finish the packing while everyone stares at you waiting for you to hurry. When you are video chatting, start talking, and because of the delay, you interrupt each other all the time. Stop talking, start talking, interrupt the other one, stop talking, never-ending story. When you reply to a stranger who says hello, but then realize they were on the phone and not speaking to you. Happened to me just yesterday, and I didn't get any sleep last night, as I couldn't stop reliving the moment. When you're saying goodbye to someone, and then you both end up walking in the same direction, or when you turn and walk into a wall with people watching. When you realize you've forgotten something and need to turn around, but you don't want to just turn around abruptly because that would make you look insane. So you do a little performance where you get your phone out, pretend to check a message, sort of mime, aha, and then turn around, or cross the street, and then turn around to throw any observers off the scent. When you're having a conversation with someone and you don't hear what they say, so you ask them to repeat, and they do, but you still don't hear it, and ask them to repeat again, and they do, but you still don't know what they said. Do you ask them to repeat again? Or maybe still not hear it? Pretend you hear it and nod your head and hope it's an appropriate response. Stab yourself in the eye with a pen to create a diversion and change the subject? I always put the blame on myself. I must be going deaf, I can't hear/understand you. I usually get a little chuckle or the awkward smile. If in the end, I finally understood/heard what was said, well, whatever means. that walk down a long hallway toward each other when you've clearly seen the other person, but they're too far away to say something. So you do the awkward look around until you get close enough to say, "Hey," and keep walking. When you go for a hug, but the other person goes for a handshake, so you start with a handshake, but do a weird hug at the same time with your hands in each other's crotches. When you're walking on a sidewalk with two other friends, and you're the person that does not fit, so you have to stay behind them. When someone keeps calling you by the wrong name, you let it slide to begin with, thinking they have just made a mistake, but then it carries on for such a long time that you can never correct them. I called a guy John for a few months, until finally we were interacting and he looks at me like, "Why do you call me John? My name is Bill." Whoops. It's funny because my usual go-to if I know someone's name is Bill. I was dead convinced this guy's name was John. When you start telling a story in a group, but in middle of sentence, realize that no one is actually listening, and ever so slowly, you get quiet and hope no one took notice. When they don't realize that you are getting quiet, at first you think, good, nobody noticed. But seconds later, you start to feel bad that nobody was really paying attention to you, not even hearing that you were making noises, and that feels awful. I get this a lot. I think people just stand there waiting for me to stop talking. My dad's very good at stories. The Irish accent helps keep people engaged. Unfortunately, my weird English with an Irish twang accent just sounds annoying. I'm not sure if everyone can relate to this, but one of the most awkward situations I've ever found myself in was being invited to meet my girlfriend's family, and over dinner, her parents got into a massive fight. Kind of knowing someone in the office, well, you guys spoke that one time, so now every time you see each other in the lift, walking down the corridor, you have to decide where to put your eyes until you naturally see each other. Say hi. Ugh. You ever clog a toilet in somewhere that wasn't your house? Thanks, guys. My inbox is now clogged with all of your oversized shit stories. Can't wait to binge read all of it. Can't remember who told me this, but I'll never forget the story. A woman on a meet the parents visit to her boyfriend's parents' house. Just before they got engaged, she took a massive dump, a family trait apparently, that would just not go down. Parents had weak water pressure. She refused to leave that giant turd floating, so she extracted it, wrapped it in toilet paper, tossed it out the window, and snuck it out later in a whip. Can you imagine the extended panic as she carried out that hours-long operation? My ex-girlfriend used to help me with this. If I knew a person, I would introduce their name first. If I didn't remember the name, I would introduce my girlfriend's name, and she would shake their hand and say, "And you are?" Worked like gold. Figured this one out when I ran for local office and had to get a ton of political functions. Was super helpful because I forgot names so easily. Being expected to make polite conversation while having a gynecologist exam. There you are, pussy exposed, legs spread wide, someone is stuffing something up your vagina, and you are expected to be able to talk about the weather? I'm not a woman, but I suppose the poor doc is just trying to make things less awkward, but unintentionally making things more awkward. When you're waking up behind someone that has a slightly lower pace than you, so you start to pass them, but then have that awkward moment when you're walking next to them before you cut in front of them. Worse is also when it's a narrow corridor and you can see people coming towards you from ahead, and you try to do the math to figure out if you'll be able to overtake the slow walker without running into those people like a car. And then you start nearly running to get past them because they start walking the same speed as you. There's this weirdo in my school who keeps walking up to people and walk next to them. He did that to me, and I had that, "What?" face. When the server brings your food and says, "Enjoy your food," and starts walking away and you say back, "You too." I'm a server. If it makes you feel any better, I've said, "Have a nice day, guys," instead of "Enjoy your meal," more often than I'd like to admit. I think it comes off from me not trying to use the same phrase for every table. I hate the idea of saying something to one table, then them overhearing me say the same thing. word for word to the table next to them. Basically, I'm trying to make the service a little more personal, but it occasionally makes me do dumb shit like that. When you're next in line at the grocery store with your mom, and she leaves you just to get one more thing, and the anxiety and awkwardness builds because you're up and she's nowhere to be found. That'll be 153,60,000 euros, sir. Cash or credit card? Mom is at the very end of the supermarket, hesitating between two different shampoo bottles. Should she take the one that prevents greasy hair, or the one that prevents dry hair? She'll never know. When you think you hung up on the phone, but you didn't, and proceeded to say something unflattering about the person you were talking to. When you want to tell something important / funny, and everyone is listening, but you start to stutter and cannot find the words, ends up with everyone silent. When the person says no when you ask them out. Even worse, when they try to let you down easy by saying, "Oh, I don't know, I might have plans that day," and part of your brain is convinced they're actually interested, but the cynical part knows better. So you just stand there, a war raging in your head, while they stare at you, looking for their exit. You are surrounded by strangers, let's say a bus, no cell phone, no headphones. You remember a really stupid and funny thing, and you start laughing. Congratulations, now everyone is looking at you, asking why the fuck you're laughing. When you're at a self-serve place or retail store and presented a tablet that asks for a tip percentage, you know there shouldn't be a tip because there is no service aspect to it, but you feel obligated because there is a person watching you. This one goes out to the girls who didn't have a lot of powerful, uplifting women in their lives. But the first time a girl has to buy pads / tampons, it's really awkward. Like, you're letting the whole world know you're a baby maker and working. I know when I was 10 I had to do this. I was so terrified / weirded out, I thought everyone was watching me. When you realize you were walking the wrong way, so you pat your pockets to pretend you forgot something and have to go back, or pretend you were checking Google Maps instead of just turning around. I'm actually criminally bad at names, and I've slowly got worse over time. I've always been a little self-absorbed and forgetful, so I've always had a little anxiety when it comes to remembering names. But that only adds pressure and makes it worse over time. On top of that, my name is slightly unusual and has a lot of similar variations, so people always need to repeat it when I say it, which makes introductions awkward for me, so I don't like doing introductions at all really. So just now, because I suck at remembering names, and because no one ever remembers mine, I tend to just not do intros. I have a regular customer that I've known for 18 months that I'm only just learning their names because when I was delivering to them during this pandemic, I'm supposed to just take their name rather than make them sign anything. It's really bad. When your entire workforce is being told to maintain a 6 feet distance and everyone continues to consciously walk towards you instead, like, lady, I have to get to the other side of the building. You have 23 feet to your right. Why are you attempting to sideswipe me like we're on I-95? That thing where you're talking and you kind of choke on your own words, so your voice gets nasally for a second and you have to swallow or cough a little bit. Both always makes me so uncomfortable. As a teen, it's very awkward when relatives ask what games I've been playing recently. Even when I do tell them, they obviously don't know what it is, so they'll either just bob their head or ask me about it. It's good that they're trying to show interest in something I like to do, but it feels there are always much better questions to be had. When someone says words incorrectly, like especially, but it's rude to correct them because they're a stranger or your boss, or your new girlfriend / boyfriend's parents, but you're dying inside. Sometimes I say certain words like gyros or pho wrong. On purpose, to people I don't think understand me if I said it correctly, so I don't have to explain or sound of pompous. But one time, I did that to someone that they corrected me, and before I could stop myself, I told them, "Oh, I know how it's really pronounced. I just thought you didn't." I actively avoid them now. When you're in public and you start to choke on something, but not a lot so you can breathe a little, but you don't want to keep coughing too loud and get attention, so you roughly inhale through a piece of muffin in your throat, with your face turning red and your eyes and nose dripping like you're a wreck, but you really just didn't ingest the muffin properly. So now you're embarrassed about it, choking on it, and embarrassed about being embarrassed to choke on it, and not coughing with being and instead choking slightly for 5 minutes. Happened to me at work yesterday. When you go for a high five and the person goes for a fist bump. So you switch to a fist bump, but they also switched, so you just go for it and do a mixture of both. Which I found out is literally called the awkward turkey. Most of the awkward situations come from thinking what people may think of you. That much awkwardness just fades away. It's not that you aren't worthy of being thought of, it's just people think of you as much as you think of them, which is not much. Going to greet someone from behind, only to have them not be the person you expected, and a complete stranger. I did this in a pub, thinking it was my friend, only for them to be a complete stranger, who also thought they knew me. Resulted in a few minutes of confused remarks and looks from both of us and their friends, until we realized we were both strangers and had never seen each other before. I left the pub as fast as I could, and have never been back. I asked my fiance's dad if I could marry her with the TV going in the background, and a graphic sex scene started playing during our discussion. I didn't want to make it sound weird by shutting off the TV before asking, but I also didn't anticipate what ultimately showed up on the screen. We both went along like we didn't notice, but deep down we did. Life always finds a way to throw you curveballs. Seeing someone you know at the grocery store, and then having to awkwardly acknowledge them again and again down several aisles. Oh, hi again. Yeah, I didn't see those were on wholesale. Awesome. Buying Prego too, I see. Can't go wrong with Prego. Awkward stare downs on public transport. When you feel someone watching, you stare back, look the other way, then sneak a quick peek to see if the other person is also looking at you, and you also notice them looking. I always feel like this is just as awkward for the other people who is probably thinking the exact same thing. What is this person looking at me for?